You all understand supply and demand. The reason I'm throwing it out there is so that we as appraisers sometimes step back from our daily grind and ask ourselves, okay, what are the principles at play here? Why is it that I do what I do?
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast.
Minisode.
Been getting back to the basics in some of the last few minisodes, and today is no different. We're going to talk about supply and demand. I want to pause here, remind you that we are sponsored by ANow Software. I love ANow's ability for me to be able to know exactly what's going on with my business at a snapshot. I can know what my revenue is, what my total volume is. I can break it down so many different ways. Go to anow.com to learn more. Put a /coach at the end of that, and you can join my all-star team for free. 3 months, a whole quarter in the all-star team. Go to anow.com/coach. Well, folks, do you remember the big housing crash of 2008? Of course you do. Well, what happened? What happened? Well, folks, in the end, the market was flooded with houses, right? They were flooded with houses because there was people that couldn't make their payments. The value had dropped out of the market. And you know, here's the thing. This is a cascading problem. Once you start to see values dropping, and I mean dramatic drops, then you have a huge problem. And that is that will snowball and become worse and worse and worse. When there's an oversupply on the market, there is a decrease in values. Right? That's just economy 101. If you've ever read Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith, please go. If you have not read it, folks, and it's daunting. Okay, it's a big book, and I'll admit I haven't read it from cover to cover, but I did skim it pretty thoroughly. Okay, can you do that? Can you skim thoroughly? It is so interesting, these principles of economy and how they were as true in the 1700s as they are today. That's what makes them principles. Because they continue to just be no matter what time, place that you find yourself in, okay? So you've got this problem of the value starting to drop. Well, guess what the banks did? The banks saw this coming, right? Well, maybe they didn't see it coming. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen the Big Short, right? But as this starts to roll out, the banks step back and they say, hold on a second. We're getting more and more foreclosures. And so what are we going to do here? Do we just throw them all out there on the market? No, what happens is you've got a huge oversupply when you do that. And so we had these things called shadow inventories. Do you remember this? Where the banks, let's say a bank had 25 houses in foreclosure in a neighborhood, right? They're not going to put all 25 houses on the market at the same time. Because by doing so, they dramatically reduce the amount of cash that they can get back out of those homes. And because of the taxpayer bailout and all of this other stuff, and we can go into that, which we won't, okay? But the bottom line is they didn't have to. And so what they did was they held them back. They put them in what we call shadow inventories, meaning there was no sign out front. Sometimes people were living in the property and they were not paying their mortgage. But they did this, the banks did this because they didn't want to flood the market all at once. Folks, there is a principle here. And by the way, this show is not about whether or not the banks made a good decision. I'm simply trying to teach a principle about supply and demand, that when you have an oversupply in the market, your values are going to drop. That's just a true principle. Another true principle is ANow Software. Why? Because it works all the time. I love the fact that I can get on my smartphone. I can get on my tablet. I can get on my laptop. I can get on my desktop because it is in the cloud, folks. It is amazing that no matter where I'm at, no matter what I'm doing, if I have any question on either my business as a whole or specifically with regard to a particular property that we're working on, I can go right there to ANow Software. And by the way, we've started using ANow Software for our work file as well, which is awesome because it's unlimited storage. Put as many pictures in there as I want, and they're always there at my fingertips. Folks, what are you waiting for? Check them out. Go to anow.com/coach, anow.com/coach. All right, folks, we're talking a little bit about principles, finances 101, and today we're talking about supply and demand, okay? You all understand supply and demand. The reason I'm throwing it out there is so that we as appraisers sometimes step back from our daily grind and ask ourselves, okay, what are the principles at play here? Why is it that I do what I do? How does value work, right? And value has so much to do with supply and demand, whether it be a pack of gum at the store or gas outside the store or real estate, okay? Neighborhoods can and often do vary from the overall market. In other words, you can have an overall situation where, let's say the Idaho Falls market is going up at 1.2% per year, right? You can have neighborhoods in particular that are going up for, 3 or 4% or possibly going down. During the crash, and I often heard the local news reporting increasing markets, okay? Now, this is during the crash. I'm not kidding. During the crash, I often heard local news outlets reporting increasing markets. Well, why? Well, because they were getting their information from real estate agents who had a desire to see this. That was the bottom line. Now, these real estate agents weren't lying. The market, quote unquote, was increasing at certain times, okay? But it was very, very tricky about how, you basically had to stand on your head and bite your tongue just the right way to see it. Now, if you really dug into their numbers, yeah, sure, the market is increasing, right? Yeah, okay, if you look at this week to this week, or you look at, there were so many things that they were doing to spin and make things look better than they are. When you look into more details, individual homes and neighborhoods were not increasing. Many of them were decreasing dramatically, and depending on the time period, okay? When I say during the crash, that's a big, big statement, right? That's a big period of time, okay? But you could look at just one location, and individual homes could be much, much different, okay? Location can affect micro markets as well. Now, I tell you this not to teach you how to manipulate the markets, of course. But you cannot, you simply can't single-handedly affect that market, right? But you can increase the value of your home, for example, if you're talking from a homeowner's perspective, by understanding what the market is. That's where appraisers come in really handy. And the timing of a sale or a refi or a PMI is huge. I saw people who within a 6-month period of time wanted to remove the PMI insurance, the property mortgage insurance from their, and who wouldn't, by the way? PMI is a complete racket. You're paying insurance for somebody else, right? But they didn't have the equity to do it. And 6 months later, they did. Happens all the time. Supply and demand is a huge, huge factor with value. It really is the factor, right? When it boils down to it, it's the factor. It plays hand in hand with the law of substitution and what an individual is willing to pay. Folks, what are you willing to pay for the ability to know more about how to run a more effective, more efficient appraisal office? I would hope that it's not a cost to you, that it is an investment. That's what the Dream Team does for appraisers across the nation. We meet every quarter in a city of your liking, of your choice, where we meet together in person. I fly to those cities, we sit in a hotel room, and we nail your business and what we can do to increase your business and make it better on all aspects. Folks, join us, please. Reach out to me, the coach at theappraisercoach.com. Consider joining the Dream Team and watching your appraisal office change for the better. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.